Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar about what it is to be a tech lead and really the change that you might face when you change into a role as tech lead or you grow in your role as tech lead. So welcome. My name is Klaus Wagner Pedersen, if you want to look me up anywhere. I am from a company called Syndicate. We dabble in education and consultancy in regards to organizational development. So I'm going to be one of your hosts today. And by my side, I have Søren.
Hello, and welcome everyone. I think I just promised our audio guy out here to make sure that you give a thumbs up if you can hear us, and just take a chance to say welcome to each other in there in the chat. We have a lot of people joining today, which is great. So yeah, I'm Søren. So I'm a tech lead. And the moment that you become a tech lead, I think an interesting change happened. It becomes sometimes very hard to actually keep doing the work that you love. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, but that's also my intro. I work with actually helping people taking the transition from being an individual contributor, a programmer, to a tech lead, and keep doing the things that you love. I work with Trifork. I have a background as a software developer, and architect, Scrum Master, and a lot of other stuff. At Trifork, we do consultancy services for a lot of large Danish customers. It could be Bankdata, Lego, Energinet, and a lot of others. I'm sure we have some of you on the call out there today, so an extra welcome to you. And then I also represent, the go-to part of Trifork today. At GoTo, we do conferences, training. We have the GoTo conference in the fall in Copenhagen. Yep. If you don't know about it, be sure to check it out. It's a conference for developers, by developers, with a lot of great developer rock stars joining every year. So, and I'll be there, of course, as well in the fall. That was the quick, I think, intro to us.
And you might wonder, why are these three companies cahooting together? It's actually because Søren and I spent a lot of last year on building an education for specifically tech leads. So that's kind of why we're here together as well. And we want to spread some of that knowledge that we have from the training. We had the first group, graduating last fall. So we really enjoyed that, and we want to spread that message to you people. So that's kind of why we are working together on this. We have both the technical side from Trifork, and Søren really spans both areas. And kind of my view on it is working with tech leads and seeing how they affect organizations. So that's really what we want to share with you today, our knowledge on that, and giving you some tips and tricks on how to work as a tech lead in your organization. But not everyone here perhaps is a tech lead. But that's also okay. It's also for you that may be close to tech leads or leader to tech leads. And we want to know a bit about who are you out there. So we've done a bit of a poll inside of Zoom. So if Sam will fire up, are you doing that?
Yeah.
Fire up the first poll. It's kind of a question to who are you out there. So it's in the sense that we know who's listening in, so we can kind of direct the way we speak to the right audience. So there should be a poll on your screen right now. So fire away, who are you? What are you doing? If you can't find a fit for your role, there's a thing called others in the bottom. So if you press others, just write in the chat. If you're not one of the above, what are you then? Yeah.
And the poll is launched, and it should pop up on your screen automatically. And I can see people already found it, so that's awesome. While you're all answering this question, you forgot to say that you're welcome to connect with you guys on LinkedIn.
Of course you are.
Yeah. So
I don't know, Sam, we can send out something as well as in the in the notes afterwards, but otherwise I'm sure you'll be able to search us in there.
Yeah, because we have the pleasure of you for an hour, and that might not be enough for all of your questions, so you're also welcome to reach out afterwards. Sam will post our LinkedIn information. Reach out there. All right, we have a result. All right, so if we look at it, we have a vast majority of tech leads and senior developers, as you can see. A few junior developers, a few architects, a few managers, and some others. Others being an electrician, or transitioning to software development. Interesting, yeah.
Cool.
We've Actually, currently with a customer, we have one of those. So, yeah.
And I think that's perfect. I mean, a lot of the things we'll be talking about today will actually apply equally well to leaders within different fields of as long as you have like a background where you have a competence that you need to build and teach your group. You might say it could be also if you are a UX or electrician or whatever. So
transitioning into software development.
So welcome to all of you. And we have another poll, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have another poll. Yeah. So it's a bit more.
Don't worry, we will also be talking a little bit in a while, but
it's just to get to know who's out there.
Yeah.
And this is specifically to if we look at the training that you typically attend.
No, this
right?
is
that's the next one. Sorry, you do that then.
Yeah. Okay. So think of a tech lead. It could be yourself. There's a lot of tech leads here. So how do you or that tech lead that you are thinking about actually spend their day? So how much time do you spend programming, sitting, doing code, and how much time do you spend on other stuff? And that other stuff could be meetings, emails, perhaps code reviews. So just a kind of an indication on your division of time here as a tech lead. Again, it could be yourself or it could be your good friend, the tech lead that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense. We'll get back to that answer later on, so there's a point to all this. But it's really interesting to see where this is will land.
I was just about to spoil question number 3, but we'll take.
I kick you, step you over the feet here.
Yeah. So this is basically to get a feeling about where do you spend your time, right? And we can see the things coming in. They are mostly around the 50-50 mark, or the 20-80 mark in the sense of. Spending much time on the coding side, actually.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's also relatively typical for what we see in the realm of tech leads. Sometimes we see that some tech leads, the more kind of lead part they become, they spend less and less time coding. But that's kind of the fluency between the role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not uncommon at all to see, like we saw here, that. Maybe only 20% of your time is actually spent programming, and the rest of the time spent on other stuff. And this is, of course, a point that we'll like to make and get back to here also during this talk today.
Yeah. And really leading into this, right? Because so that's also one of the reasons why we made this education was also for actually your personal experience, Søren. So your experience in becoming a tech lead.
Yeah.
And that's really also what we kind of want to lead into today is actually Søren talking a bit about how it was to be, and it's a few years now, but how it was to become a tech lead.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if I go 15 years back, when I had one of my first experiences being a tech lead, it was not uncommon that my evenings were spent in either one of two ways, right? So I had a daughter at that time at 3 years old, and so either I was spending 2 hours reading her bedtime stories, holding her hand, and she had this thing where it's like going on like this for 2 hours, checking the like integral consistency of my skin. And when I wasn't doing that, my wife was in there getting the skin rubbed off her hand, and I was sitting out at the living room, and I would pop up my laptop, and then I would just say, now I have like 2 hours where I can get some actual programming done, right? And because the day had been spent different Scrum ceremonies, coordination meetings between teams, handling things that just pops up, emails, stuff like that, and I always had this idea that I would actually have time to work on the stories that I committed myself to during the day, but it actually always ended up me spending the evenings doing this stuff, right? So that's great if you like working every evening, but in the long run, I think it's not a sustainable pace for most of us. So I had to kind of rethink a little bit about how I actually approached my work, and that took some time. And I think this journey I've seen it elsewhere as well, for senior developers out there. So I'll talk a little bit into that today and some kind of the change that I made and that helped me, and hopefully that could also be helpful to some of you out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're actually gonna switch over to the other camera. So, Søren, if you just run over there, I'll switch. Because we tried to make a setup for you guys as well, so we will try and show you a bit about the different things. But diving into your journey, we'll forget about the flips for a bit, but continuing on your journey, son.
Yeah. So what actually happened? What changed with me stepping into this role? I reflect a little bit on that. So why did I do it at all? If I had to stress that much in the evening. So the green posted here, green means good. So some of the things that changed and is the amount of influence that I had, right? So I think it's very common for a lot of people ending up in a role as tech lead, senior developer. They're usually quite opinionated, right? So you can't keep your mouth shut when something comes up, and you always have an opinion about how to build something. And you want to have your voice heard and want to have your impact. And that was certainly true for me as well. And so getting more influence about how we actually address a problem and how we solve it. I mean, autonomy to do the things that you think is right was really a big motivator going upwards. But it kind of came at a cost, right? So tech lead is not a really well-defined role description in most cases. So it's usually it's just like you have your old job where you do a lot of programming, and now you need to do this stuff as well, right? So nobody kind of tells you what you should stop doing and what you should do instead. You have to kind of, at least that was my experience, kind of find your way in this. So what was actually expected of me?
Yeah.
And was I doing it right? And am I doing the right things? That was I think that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something about skills. So I went from a situation when there was a pretty good fit. I mean, I was probably, before I became a lead, like some of you on the poll here, coding more than 50%, 60, 70% of the time. And then things dropped down to around maybe 20, and maybe that 20 was in the evening, right? So what was I doing the other 80% of the time, right? I was coordinating. I was helping my team, trying to solve problems, figuring out the problems they had, help them solve it. Scrum ceremonies, going to a lot of coordination meetings in my own teams, but also between like sister teams, figuring out what to do. And so I was figuring this out myself, but I was also a little bit unsure. So what do I actually need to solve this, right? I have a feeling that there is something here missing in terms of the competencies that I need to actually solve this. And finally, and this is back to my story out here, focus and flow. You see me in the camera? Yes, you can. So I love being in flow, being able to sit down, just focus on a task for a couple of hours. And it could be programming and it can be other stuff as well. But a lot of that was really hard to maintain stepping into the tech lead role, I think. So some of that stuff that gives you energy, especially if you're like a little bit structured engineering type of person, like a lot of you probably are out there, how do you actually maintain that and keep doing the craft that you also love?
Yeah.
So that was some of the changes that happened to me, and we will speak a bit into that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's definitely one of the challenges we see often is that it sometimes feels like when you become a tech lead, you don't change your job, you just get an extra job, right? And the problem in how do you maintain that and how do you make it sustainable in the long run of suddenly having two jobs. And what we want to try and give you is some ideas to how you can actually dabble with this on an everyday basis. And we want to give some examples. We've brought this matrix kind of thing. It's called Eisenhower's matrix if you want to Google it somewhere at some point. But it's actually to help you guide yourself in the decisions you have to make in an everyday life. It is, and you've probably seen it before, but we kind of want to twist it into a tech lead kind of version. But it has two columns. It's the urgent column, so stuff that's urgent that needs to be handled now. It has a not urgent column, and then it has two rows. It has an important row and a not important row. And we have some stickies that we want to post-its we want to put up.
Just to give an example
Yeah.
of what could be in these quadrants.
So, for example, in the urgent, so we are currently in the urgent and important, right? It could be a critical bug on your live system. So what we typically see is that when we have a critical bug on live systems, it is our senior developers, our tech leads that we put on that because it's important. Our system is down, everything is burning, customers are calling, it's costing money, right? So we want to throw our best people at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's usually a good thing, right? When you are not a tech lead. So of course you are one of the brighter minds in the teams, brightest minds. So we want to throw you at that task.
And that's often what happens, right? If you're a tech lead, we have a high priority situation. Of course, this is where you go to help and fix as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Another could maybe a little less important down here, right?
No, this wasn't. It was just in the category.
Okay. All right. So never mind that.
Yeah.
So
Maybe let's say that. The same category.
same category. Of course, if you have the top story in your sprint, that will usually be quite urgent, right? And probably also important since it's in the sprint. It's definitely urgent since it needs to be done in like a week or two max. And somebody thought it was important not to put up the top of the backlog. So this is also a place where you will spend your energy. Both as maybe also some of the best people on your team will spend their energy, right?
Yeah, and I think the challenge is when you move into a tech lead role is that being on that top story in the sprint might actually be a huge challenge because, as Søren said, it being called out to meetings or an architecture review or coordinating with sister teams, but that is not necessarily time spent on the top story. So that top story sometimes gets to put on hold while you are at that meeting. Right? So there's no progress on the team's actually most important task.
Yeah, so this was exactly what happened to me, right? So this is why I was spending evenings programming, because I committed to making progress in this and people were depending on it. So as I didn't make progress, it's on a critical path, so people are going to be blocked.
Yeah.
So that was kind of...
And I think also to talk into the one that says the match with skills and tasks is that this you can do, right? You've been doing this for typically years, right? You're good at this.
It's the comfortable place to be.
But some of the new tech lead stuff that's new to you, it can be scary because it's something a new territory, right? So it's kind of clinging to this could be a thing because I know what I need to do that, right? Yeah. So these are just examples, and we'll kind of iterate back on it. But if we move into the not important but still urgent kind of thing, it could be a meeting without an agenda. Right, you're called in. Hey, participate in this meeting, please. And you don't know what it is about, but you're called in anyways because you are the tech lead of the team.
Yeah, and if you're anything like me, you have probably been on a lot of projects where you do a lot of this stuff. And the first hint is probably when you see this, why would you even do things that are not important? But I'm pretty sure a lot of you could point to meetings in your calendar if you took a deep look inside and say, okay, is this really important for me to be in this meeting? Yeah.
It could also be an ad hoc request, so someone coming and asking you for something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anything really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's urgent. It's now.
Yeah.
And it could be important, but it could also not be. But you have a tendency to want to help people that comes, regardless, right?
Yeah, and it's also so the ad hoc request is also in that section where it feels good to have people, right?
Exactly.
Even though it was totally an unimportant thing, right? Yeah. We move over to the not important / not urgent. It could be something like a new framework. That could be interesting to look into, right? It's not really urgent because it's not something we will die without using, and I think you could maybe argue that it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it is important for a new framework.
Yeah.
But if we want a kind of even more important one, here, gold plating, so the tendency to make something prettier than it has to be. I remember you talked about the love for making it extra structured.
That's also a very common pit to fall in. You spend time making things really, really nice, because it's just satisfying, and also because honestly, it's nice to show people things that you have taken care of crafting to a really nice standard, right? So this is also about actually being acknowledged for doing good craftsmanship. Yeah, I thought it was up there, but I mean, it all depends on the context, right?
My small notes.
I would also say that at least that was the intent when we made the example.
I made a screw up. Never mind.
He does that all the time.
Yeah, I'm human. Yeah.
No, anyways, a new framework. So this is typically something that it could be a new UI framework. It could also be a database or whatever. So this is something you want to consistently stay on top of, right? So what is the right tools for you to use in your application? It's never really urgent to make a shift away from, rarely urgent. If it is urgent, you have a really problem to make a shift away from one UI framework or one database to another. But it can be really important.
Yeah. The one that should be down here is the orientation meeting. So you are in some kind of meeting just to keep oriented about it, right?
Yeah.
And it could be couldn't that be an email, or couldn't I get a kind of just a resume from someone who was there?
Yeah.
Right? Do I have to be there for the whole 2 hours where it was only 5 minutes that was important to me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this is all about, and you can't feel that, it's all about prioritizing your time. What should I spend time on as a tech lead, right? And we have the last one up here in not urgent, but very important, is the fundamental architecture. So as a tech lead, you'll become more involved in the architectural work, which is very seldomly urgent, right? But it's very important.
Yeah. So architecture, so what is it, first of all? So it's anything that you do to keep the structure of your system sound, right? So it's easy to, and it's flexible, and it's easy to implement new features, right? So this is probably what you want to achieve with a good architecture. And you constantly have to keep that in focus, and you normally have to refactor towards it, or consider different way of structuring your system as it grows, right? So this is never done. And like Klaus said, it's rarely something that's really urgent. And again, if it is, you have a real problem, because it's called, what you call that, a burning platform, right?
Yeah.
But it's usually something you need to pay attention to, because otherwise the speed of how you can do these things will just slow down.
Yeah.
You get technical debt. Yeah. So the point of all this is I was spending my time still a lot here, because this was what I was used to doing. This was what was important to the team. It's important to the customer. It was what people were asking me. I mean, this was the pull for where I should spend my time. So, but it was really hard not to become like a block for the team, unless I kind of ended up spending my evenings on this. So I started out making more of a conscious transition towards being in this quadrant. And of course, it's not completely black and white. Nothing ever is, or red and blue. But whatever, you have to kind of think about what you can do to move in that direction. Because first of all, this is where you can spend your competences as a senior or as a tech lead really, really well. This is usually where that's well applied. And it's also a place where it's easier, because it's not urgent, it's easier to help someone that comes with a critical bug and enable them to solve that, and then step back here. So you're usually not putting yourself on a critical path. So that's a good thing to have in mind. You don't need necessarily, you can of course choose to have that sitting in your desk, putting all your tasks up here, but especially this shift here, I think, was something that was really helpful to me to start being more conscious about what kind of jobs do I actually take on in the team.
Yeah, and it's also about, so it's very much about enabling others as well, right? Yeah. And when you're fixing critical bugs or you are doing the top story, you're not necessarily enabling your team or your other people around you, right? And that's really what, if we work on stuff like foundational architecture, right? It's very much about, yes, we are helping the team, right? And having that breathing room to actually look at what is coming for us. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe in a week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months or half a year. So having that kind of being able to, as a tech lead, to zoom out. But that requires you to have capacity to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And to do that, you need to let go of some of that stuff.
Exactly. And we'll come come back to a little bit how we can do that, because it could also feel like you're abandoning your team if you're just saying, I'm not going to touch that. So that's not what we mean by this, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to support that in a good way. Yeah. So again, Eisenhower's matrix, it's also really famous from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He also uses this, for you to might also know it from there. Eisenhower is famous for saying something like, I have two kind of problems. I have the urgent one, and they are never important. And I have the important one, and they're never urgent, right? So it's usually like the things that are out here that are not urgent, usually actually more important than the stuff in here. So keeping a good solid architecture on the long run is usually more important than the top story on your spread, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Huh? I'm just looking out here on our. So I think technical leadership. What is it? And what do you need to know? So we have this model that we often use. We will be speaking into it a few times during the session here today. Of course, there are some quadrants here. You need to know something about technology. You need to know something about how you build good products. You also need to know something about how do you actually manage a team and software methodologies like Agile and Scrum and stuff like that. Then you have yourself at the core. You need to be good at managing yourself. So this is also a lot of what this is about. So there's also a lot of techniques here you can apply. And then there's as a leader, there's a core or base where you have to be a good communicator, a good coach, a good mentor to some extent. So this is like a card, a landmark that you can use to say, okay, what is the landscape we're looking into here? So it's just also to say that we have an hour today, not 7 days like we do in our training program. So we're going to touch a little bit on some of these just to give you a flavor, but also to let you know there's a lot of other stuff that you need to know about making this transition.
Yeah, so we want to zoom into a few of these today, right?
Yeah.
But just consider there's a whole landscape that you can kind of dive into, but we want to do kind of a small dives at least on some of these today. Yeah. And the first one we want to dive into, son?
Architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we could have written 100 posters in here, and Klaus usually likes to say he wants to double click on stuff because that's what the young people say, right?
No.
Okay, so we're double clicking on this architecture. I hope you can see it out here. And sorry for my coughing. It's a good thing you're not here today. So I'm testing the microphone every once in a while, coughing real hard into it. But anyways, so architecture. One of the things that we dive into also on the training that we do, on the model that we use, is some of you might know this as like the onion architecture. So this is a very simplified version of the onion architecture that we have taken from the Clean Architecture book by Robert T. Martin, good old Uncle Bob. Some of you probably have read that book. If you haven't read Clean Architecture, I would be sure to add it to your cart, because it's a good book about more timeless principles about building good, solid architecture. So there are more layers in Uncle Bob's version of this, but the gist of it is that you have a core of your system, which is your domain logic. It's your use cases that you have implemented. And it's your domain model basically is in here. So this is the important stuff, what you call like principles, the stuff you want to get right. This is also typically the most stable part of your system. So the more you move out towards the perimeter, things change more, right? So you get closer to the user or I/O here. This is what Uncle Bob would call the details, and this is what you need to be able to. You need to have an architecture where it's easy to change the details, right? So you want to be able to put in a new UI framework or a new database and stuff like that. So this is a good like mental model. You can choose how many rings you want to have in your onion, but you should always structure your architecture towards some of these principles. That you have a core that you focus on getting right, and then you have the perimeters. And one last very important point here is that dependencies always go in that direction, right? So from out to in. And sometimes that's not a given, so you need to apply principles like dependency inversion that you guys know all about. So I think this is a good mental model to have. And not by chance, these colors here is also reflecting a little bit what's going on out here in the Eisenhower matrix. So this is what we would call, this is where a lot of the architectural decision lives. So try and make sure that you spend some of your time focusing on this. Right? I'm not saying that you completely abandon this, but make a transition as a tech lead to try and spend your energy here. It's well spent, and it's really important, and it will keep you out of, again, I'm simplifying things a little bit, but it will generally keep you more out of the critical path.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that spend time on the domain model and the logic and the important part.
The
maybe
structure
not,
of your software, basically. Yeah.
Just an example, not be the key person to understand the new UI framework. Right? You could be that you're involved in it, but you don't have to be the top performer on the new UI. Yeah.
So, and this is also a change that will happen. You're not going to be the expert on everything anymore. If you try to keep that up, it's going to be a really hard job, right? So you need to also accept that, and it's okay that you spend your time enabling others to be the expert on something. Yeah,
and that's really what this also is about. It's about how do we enable others, right?
Yeah.
And do we want to jump into the poll?
Oh, sorry. I was just answering somebody on the chat. They were asking who the author was of the Clean Architecture book.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We'll be sure to send that.
Yeah, we're just talking about the poll. We haven't fired it yet, Sam, so no worries.
Oh, okay.
Because there's, you remember the poll that I actually almost spoiled in the beginning? That's actually the poll we want to have you answer now. It's actually a question of, so if we look at the educations that you typically have been doing or are doing, what are they focusing on?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they focusing on the tech side, so getting better at coding could be one, yeah? Or are they focusing on some of the human side, so maybe the core side, so the coaching and facilitation?
Yeah.
What side does that actually tilt?
Yeah. So think back of the journey you've been on in education. So what did you do in the university? What kind of conferences are you going to? Where you spent your time on YouTube, that's also education. How much is this around being a better programmer, about technology? Is it 20% of your time? Is it 50%? Is it all the time? So this is what the question here is about.
Yeah, and while you answer it, we will we'll jump over here. So fire away at the poll. Go for it. Go nuts. The pole is something in the north, right? It's melting.
That's where the ice is melting.
The ice is melting. All right, so what we see is that there's a big leniency to being educated in tech, right? That's the, we see from your responses, there's definitely a lot of tech education, most of you at least. And that's also really we say that that's also what we see, right? I've seen over the, and also one of the reasons.
I think that's the paradox that the point we're trying to make. If we recall the first or the second question that you had out there, this is always the mirror of that, right? So you're spending maybe 20-30% of your time being a programmer, but this is where you have 80% of your education.
Yeah.
So there's a mismatch here, which is what we're trying to highlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really about. So I think we do this we want to have you look at maybe should you do some of your education on some other stuff, right? Yeah. And how can you bring something into your, vocabulary in that sense in order to become a better tech lead?
Yeah, and I think I just want to make a single point here is that so a lot of people with a tech background maybe don't want to go on an education where they learn about technical coaching or technical mentoring. Some probably do, but we experience that when you got a lot of these people are also nerds, right? So they love theory and models and new tools and frameworks. So usually what happens a lot of time is that when you're exposed to something, some new theory within coaching, there's a lot of tools and good stuff you could pull out there. Mm-hmm. that will light a fire in terms of motivation because there's something new I can apply here.
Yeah.
People love that generally, right? And the second point is that the less you suck at something, the more fun it is, right? So the stuff that you do, the 80% becomes more fun because now you actually have some tools that you can use.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're really talking about. So we did this this movie clip that we want to show you. Oh, that we were actually there.
Yeah.
Talking about so when you are if I press this button, are we part of the Expendables then? So you can make yourself expendable. That's really what it kind of. It doesn't mean that you need to quit your job and leave the company, but it's kind of a mindset as a tech lead that also when we talked about Eisenhower before about watching out to not necessarily be on the critical path all the time. So thinking about the move to a tech lead position is also about how can you enable others, because that's really also a part of it, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of you're no longer just a singular coder that sometimes, I'll take that task and then you can go into the corner and do that task, and then when that's done, you go and take another one, right? So you become more crucial to the team in the sense of enabling others.
Yeah.
Right, and that's really what this is kind of hinting at, of making yourself expendable, is that you need to enable others to, for example, the critical bug that we mentioned before, there should be others that could do that, not just you. And how do you then enable others, right?
Yeah. So of course it's a bit of a stretch. It's not like we should be your goal not to be needed anymore, but it's a good mindset to have there. So how can I actually enable others to do this work, right? So and you can either do it like Sylvester by becoming really old, so no one will need you anymore, or you can actually try working on it a little more actively, right?
Yeah. So, and we have a few examples of, because then you say, okay, but that sounds nice, but how can I do that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The first one we have here, so we are trying to make kind of a, should I just do this? An example.
Yeah. So the example here is someone on your team will come ask you, the compiler is complaining. I got a cyclic dependency. Can you help me with this? So the one approach could be to say, which branch? I'll try to take a look at it. And this would be the helpful tech lead trying to support his team and actually help this out.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a warning sign up here in the right corner. So another approach could also be to say, okay, so where exactly in the code is this the cyclic dependency? Where does it occur? Or if we zoom out a bit, what does this area actually tell us about our current architecture? Mm-hmm. So you're not putting yourself right into the critical path solving this problem. You're not putting on the fixer hat, which is what most of us will love to do because we like to help. We like to be recognized for helping. So it takes a bit of a pause, stop up and say, okay, can I actually help this in a different way than just giving the answer or start making myself part of the solution? So you need to kind of practice that reflex when somebody comes before you answer. Pause. Yeah.
And don't necessarily just fix it right away, right? Take over the task and fix it.
Yeah.
Another example.
Yeah. So another example. Somebody comes to you and asks, okay, we have this problem. It's slowing us down. I have this. Should we refactor it now or should we wait till later? Same answer as before. Which branch? I'll take a look at it. Or maybe you call the shot and say, okay, wait until next release. We'll do it there. Mm-hmm. So you have made yourself the people with the answer, or the person with the answer again, right? So again, try and ask around the problem. So what's the consequence if we don't do it now? What will the cost be? What information are we missing to be able to decide if we should do it now or later? So some of the questions you can ask, these open questions that should stimulate a thinking process at the receiver, hopefully, right? Yeah.
And that's really what we're trying to, this is a very simplified pictogram of a developer coming with their trouble and you making that trouble your own trouble. And that can sometimes be okay. But what you're actually doing here, you are the fixer, right? You fix the issues. As we also talked about on the other camera, is that it feels nice, right, to help someone, because then developer X is happy because they are no longer boggling down with whatever task it is that you have trouble with, right? But the problem with this is that when you become a tech lead, it's not typically just one developer that has issues, right? It could be multiple. And this doesn't really scale, because then you get 10 people's problems that you're trying to fix. And you become that version where someone sits in the evening and codes because you need to fix all the difficult parts, right? So what we really want to kind of emphasize is that, and this is one of the toolboxes on our technical leadership chart there, is to bring in some of the coaching abilities. And we already dived into that in some of the ways of asking open questions. Because what we really want is, so we don't want you to leave them alone with their issues, but we want you to be the sparring partner for them. So it's totally fine that they come to you with their problems, but instead of taking over the task and fixing it, you become the sparring partner, the mentor, the coach, in the sense of helping them to themselves find the solution. Because it both it develops them as a developer, yeah. And so they become a better developer, and you enable them to in the future also take on more complex problems without necessarily you being on that critical path. And that's really what's important. So,
and you might think that you're running away from your responsibility, not fixing the highest priority bug. So like Klaus said, first of all, it's not like you should just say it's not my problem. You need to help. And second of all, so your manager or the leadership of your organization, there's nothing they would love more than for the skilled tech leads and senior developers out there being able to be a multiplier of themselves, actually being able to teach others what they're doing. So this is actually really, really much within their interest, and it's something that you will be, hopefully rewarded for this behavior, right? So
so it's really important that you think out kind of not on a one-to-one basis anymore, right? Because you are the tech lead, and Søren said you become the enabler of others and the multiplier, so you can enable others to do better, right? Yeah. So it's not just a one-to-one relationship. Yeah. But we want to give you a few tools, kind of to how can we then ask these questions? What could the examples of that be? So we have kind of more examples, a bit more practical, in the sense of if I want to be that person to ask the open questions, what kind of open questions could I ask? And how could I differentiate it, perhaps?
So the first tool was basic coaching, right? It's open questions. So we are saying open by intent, because it's not, have you tried doing this and this? That's not an open question. An open question is what we had of the examples before.
And the examples really highlight that when you ask open questions, it is not to get a specific answer. It is to make the person you are with. So if we take that this example again, right? It's when you coach the person you're with, it's actually to help create a space for them to figure out a solution, right? And when you go into a mentoringship, you can maybe help them with your experience in that, but it's still asking the open questions so that they can try and solve the problem and guiding them on the way. So being kind of their guide along the way. So that's kind of one thing we want to really highlight is try to ask more open questions, right? So that's point one. Point two, an example.
Yeah. So this is another coaching tool that we're talking about here. We have the same example as before. The compiler is complaining. So what can you do? What kind of questions can you answer? Let's take the next one or ask. So mentally you can go down. So be more specific. So where exactly in the code does this cyclic dependency occur? So you're looking for more specifics, evidence, what's going on here.
Diving into detail.
Diving into details. So you can, with your questions, you can have that mental model. You can either go down. You could also go up. So we are talking about principles, architecture. If we zoom out of it, what does this error tell us about our current architecture? So my point is here, it's not like one is better than the other, but you need to play around with both of them because it will give different insights and will give different reflections with with the person that you're coaching, which is basically what you're doing here. It's micro coaching. You could also go sideways. So this is looking for different dimensions. So one dimension could be intention. So what are you trying to achieve when the modules were coupled? What are we actually working on here? Or you could have a dimension called history. So is there something we've seen before? When was the last time? Did somebody else run into this problem? So, and there could be a lot of other different dimensions to follow here. So this is a good mental model. It actually has a name, also in coaching.
Yeah, it's called chunking, right? So can you chunk up or can you chunk down? And so this is also a model that we want to present to you that you can take home and use right away. But just to understand what it means to chunk up or down or sideways, is that so consider the wall in the middle, saying that is kind of where we are now. That's what we're talking about. So the ability to chunk up or down. So think about, this is kind of a conceptual drawing saying that if we are building a wall, and I'm talking about with one of the other developers, they're building the wall. What we can do is we can ask concrete questions. So to the bricks themselves, how do you build the bricks? How do you lay them? What direction? What angle? Something like that, right? Which is very specific. That's chunking down, going into detail, right? Which really talks about concrete action or ownership of that individual brick. You can also chunk up, which is going into more values and principles. So why are we building this wall? Or are we actually building this castle? Right? Oh, so if we're building a castle, the wall might need to be thicker because we'll be attacked or something like that, right?
And this is really a good place also to, especially if you're talking to people that are not technical, management, think about chunking up. A lot of people will try to explain all the details. So you need to abstract usually. So what are we actually aiming for here?
Yeah, and that's really also a role we see that a lot of tech leads are frustrated in understanding is that we can't necessarily always talk about the problem with cyclic dependency. Just for example, right? Leadership would be like, what?
Yeah.
Cyclic what?
Yeah.
Right. So you need to chunk that up and talk about what are the values, what are the principles, what is actually the challenge here, right? But it could also be challenging or chunking sideways in this example here, saying that, well, are we building a wall? Maybe there should be a gate instead in this wall, or should be a gate somewhere at least in the wall, right? So that's kind of chunking sideways, looking at alternatives or other processes that we can use.
Yeah.
So chunking is really a good tool in the sense that you can use that to change the framing, both the framing of your questions, but also the framing of the dialogue. And it's also to recognize as a tech lead, when are people talking on different levels?
Yeah.
If you have a developer in the room and a leader in the room, they might be talking in totally different directions, because one of them is talking about the concrete brick and the other one is talking about the castle that we're building, and they're not understanding each other. So chunking is also a way to get people on the same level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a programmer by trade. So I like to explain this model, or at least have this mental model in when I talk about this. It's really just object-oriented programming, right? So you have inheritance, you have aggregations, composition going downwards, and you have your associations. So if you want to just have an object-oriented model of the conversation you're having, maybe that'll help you if you are nerdy enough, and you can just sit there programming and modeling a little bit in the back of your head while you're asking questions to your colleagues. Yeah. So one tool in the coaching toolbox, there's a lot of stuff there that we haven't touched upon today, and you can take an education, and a lot of people do, taking years of coaching. Yeah. So this is just a small taste. And what we try to do here is put it in a context of technical leadership. So instead of just talking coaching in a more general term and solving people's problems at home, trying to put in how can we use it in a tech lead context.
Yeah, and it really talks about kind of, so these, I want to actually run over here again. Talking about, so what we just did is we dived into some of the transformational stuff, right? So we talked about, and some of the core stuff, we talked about coaching and some coaching techniques, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about that and giving you a few tools, asking the open questions instead of just fixing it right away, and using the chunking method in the sense of, do we go into details? Or do we zoom out and look at the broader perspective?
Yeah.
And that's some of the technical leadership tools that we urge you to dive into. But and I think this flip kind of talks a lot about is that think about it when you look at what do I improve myself on? Can we say that? Yeah. Next, is that just the technical stuff that you're diving into? Or should your next book, YouTube video, course, training, whatever, be on maybe some of the product side or the transformation side or some of the core principles, or actually looking into your own development, right? So
building good habits.
So maybe for yourself, actually chunking up in that sense of looking at I thought that was funny. Of chunking up in your education-wise, looking at, if I zoom out a bit, should my next, the next thing I'm going to look into, a book, whatever, should that be on the technical side? Or should I maybe, as a tech lead, broaden my view on some other things that are important to my role? Because you answered yourself that you spend maybe 50-50 or less on coding. So the other 50%, as Søren said, it typically becomes more fun when you're good at it, right? So should I improve myself on that as well? So just think about it. The next time you have spare time, you find spare time if you think about this.
Yeah.
Right? What should your next journey be? Yeah.
I hope there's a few useful tips and tricks for you to take home from this. We have one more slide, I think, and then maybe time for a few questions.
Yeah. So we are walking.
Yeah.
Because the next slide is you're taking my spot.
Yeah, sorry.
Go away. Oh, that was not it. Is that one? It's a lot of buttons. Oh yeah. So just this is small kind of a commercial inlay in this webinar before we jump to the questions. That we have this technical leadership and practice education, which we find is very unique. You can see on the left there what we see as and we kind of figured you out already, that you spend a lot of time working with people, but you spend most of your training on tech and less on people. And we made this education that we are quite proud of actually, and we've gotten really great reviews. The first team we had here in the fall last year, where we had 12 happy tech leads that came out as with that certification, and we are actually repeating that education. And this time we are repeating it in English. So you are welcome to look at that. There's a link there, syndicate.dk/tlip you can go into. So look more on the education.
It's a fairly ambitious education, you might say. We call it education, not a course, because it's 4 modules, as you see. It's running 7 days. And to the flip that we just looked at before, there we have a lot of time to touch on some of the other areas as well. And I think the great thing is that you have other tech leads from other companies around you, so you get to share experiences in that context with them. So.
Yeah, and the modules are spread about a month apart, so there's homework in between, there's stuff you have to work on, you come back, and we dive into that, what you've tried, what you've failed with, what you've learned, and all that. So there's, and it's actually, we still have a few spots, right Sam?
Yeah.
We have a few spots left on the education here coming up in late February. It starts the next module. It is it's going to be in Copenhagen and it's going to be in English. So if it's something for you, go in,
check it out,
to the website, check it out, or write us on LinkedIn if you have any questions. And there's also a Danish course coming up in the fall. That's going to be in Aarhus, in Danish though. So you need to be able to speak that. Otherwise,
that will help.
Pick the first one.
I spent the next half year learning Danish.
Yeah. So that was just kind of a small commercial inlay, and we are
have a time for
we are jyder, but we are actually really proud of that. The education has been going really well, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from the participants. So give it a look.
Yeah.
But enough about our education.
Yeah.
And back to you people for questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are some good questions in here. I shared a link in the chat for our English website for the TLEAP, Technical Leadership in Practice. So have a look at that. And I'm also sharing links for your LinkedIn profiles if you want to connect, have questions. We usually do Q&As, but there's not one coming up before we start. Just
reach out.
Yeah, reach out if you have questions. Yeah.
Okay, we do have some really good questions. There's one here from Preben. Can you comment on the boundaries of the tech lead role, and what is important? What is the important context around the tech lead as you see it? How are things like recruitment, product strategy, company strategy, career development of the team, budgets, etc., related to the role?
Yeah.
You start?
Yeah. Okay. Go
ahead. So I think that's a really good example of something that is important, but not necessarily urgent, right? Involving yourself as a tech lead in something like recruitment, for example. I think that would be awesome. The great tech leads I know, They involve themselves in that, and they participate in interviews of future team members, software developers, because that's part of shaping the team.
So there's not one way of doing this. Back to it's not a really tight defined role, but we could say what we usually see and what we would recommend. So definitely also be part of recruitment. So if you were working in more of a product operation model, typically the tech lead will have a kind of a central position in this, along with the product manager and the tech lead and the experience. One responsible for the experience. So that will mean something very specific in that context. And if you are a tech lead in let's say in a company that works product oriented, I don't want to run back to the flip over here, but we have a product mastery box there. You need to know more about that stuff, because you need to know how to work with good OKRs, for example. You need to know what does it mean to be an empowered team, because you are actually part of making sure that happens. Yeah. So or you might be a tech lead on a very different company with a more project-oriented operating model, and it'll be a little bit different what kind of skills you will have to apply.
But you definitely hit a point, Preben, because the challenge is that it is not a very well-defined role, and it is very different from company to company, and it's very different what is expected of you. And I think that's also, as Søren talked into in the beginning, was that what are the expectations? So I think it's also important as a tech lead to ask that question to your leadership. What is expected of me, right? But I think that's also the challenge is that you sometimes need to help them with what they should expect of you.
Yeah.
Because if they don't see, depending on your leadership, but if they don't see the technical perspective, you need to explain to them that they also need to expect of you that you come with some of the technical challenges, that you challenge the product manager or product owner or whatever they call it in your place, to say that, well, it's nice that we want to build this new feature, but we also need to have focus on this technical depth, for example. And it could be somewhere I've been, it's a concept that they might not understand, technical depth. Why should we spend time on that? We can't get this fluffy new feature, bling bling, right? So sometimes as a tech lead, you need to define your role as well and help actually leadership define your role. Yeah.
I have more to say, but I will shut up because I rather have more questions.
I hope that was an answer for your question, Preben.
Otherwise, reach out.
There's one here. I think I can answer this one. Is there any books you can recommend for reading? I told him in the chat that we're going to send a list out with some book recommendations, because I know you have some. And I also know that if you do join the technical leadership in practice, you get a stack of books, because I sent them out.
True. Yeah. So there's a few books included in the curriculum.
But we'll list them for the.
Well, we'll list them, and then there are. So there are definitely some good ones within each of these, both in like sales management and I know Syndicate also have some nice book list that you might search out. In each of these mastery areas. So
Okay, let's see. I have one more question here. What is the hardest mindset shift when moving from being a strong individual developer to enabling others to succeed? I think you kind of touched on it, but can you kind of sum it up?
I think for me, accepting that you shouldn't necessarily try and fix problems for people, even though you really want to help. So even though you actually think you know how to do this, and I say think because sometimes it's a very different solution that will be there when somebody else do it. But actually putting a big fat lid on the fixer tank, what do you call that? Fixer urge. I think it's hard. And taking this pause when somebody comes to you and say, is this the right thing for me to dive into? Or should I do something else? I think that's, and I'm still practicing that, I would say. It's not that I have it all solved or fixed out, but I think that's, in terms of mind shift, probably the biggest one.
Yes, so the way that they come to you and say, is it A or B? Instead of just
it's so important, because I really struggled a lot with my motivation at some point, because I was just constantly fixing small problems for, you might say, other people, and it was killing my motivation. I had no time to like focus on building products, making code and stuff like that. So I had to do something different in order to get back in that zone. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you start or stop fixing other people's problems whenever they come to you.
Yeah. So help them,
Yeah.
enable them to fix their own problems. That's really what it's about.
It's also your problem. I know that.
Yeah, but,
yeah.
Enabling to help
Yeah.
with the problem at least.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay,
I think
it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
We could probably spend another hour answering questions because there's some really good ones in here.
Yeah.
I would recommend for people, maybe we'll get back to you directly, or either that or connect with you guys on LinkedIn and ask your questions.
Connect on LinkedIn.
If there's a good question, we'll do a LinkedIn post on it.
Yes,
We'll keep you anonymous.
Yeah. And keep an eye on your inbox. We're going to be sending out pictures of the slides and a recording of today and book list, and also links and information about technical leadership and practice. So please check that out. Thank you. I can see people are very happy in the chat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
And there were some great comments too. One from Nipun about context switching and some good. Yeah.
All right. Good.
All right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Looking forward to go through that.
Yeah.
Reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you for spending an hour
Thanks
with
for
us.
popping in today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have a really nice Monday, a nice week. See you later.
See you.